Well, I just got back from picking up this new project. This is a 1991 Daytona or Dodge Daytona Shelby. So it's a turbo 2.5 liter. Just picked this up off a Facebook group. Obviously needs a paint job. It's actually in really nice shape though, for a 27-year-old car. There's like no rot on the body at all. There is a couple spots underneath, but for the most part it's really good. The roof is definitely in need of paint really badly. A couple little things I'll have to fix. Somebody tried pushing it by the spoiler and ripped that up, so I gotta repair that. They had broke the back glass at one point, so they found a new hatch off a red car. So that'll have to be painted. Not sure how well I can show you how it looks under here. You can see that there are some spots that'll have to be worked on. But for the most part, it's a very solid car. See how nice it is in most spots. Like I said, there's a couple spots here and there I'll have to, like some of the trunk panel I'll have to patch up, weld in some panels. And then there's a little hole there, but it's nothing structural, and I'll weld in some new sheet metal right there. Wheels obviously all need to be refinished, so I'll clean those up and repaint them. It's going to need new tires, new brakes, all that. It doesn't run currently. I'm not sure if there's even anything wrong with it, so I bought it kind of knowing that I might have to rebuild the engine. It's got a little ding up here, nothing big. Under the hood's not so bad. Obviously needs a battery. It's got the rest of the airbox pieces in the car somewhere. But it doesn't look rough. I pulled the oil, the oil stick there, and the oil's a little dirty, but it doesn't like show any signs of moisture or anything in there. I never even opened the radiator cap to see what that looks like. Could be surprises in here. Let's find out. Oh, actually, nice clean green antifreeze, so that's a good sign. So this thing, with the oil looking good and the antifreeze looking good, there's a good chance that it doesn't have a blown head gasket, which is what these are really known for. Good chance that there's probably no cracks in the head, but I'm still not gonna be sure about that just yet. So first thing I'm gonna do to this car is I am gonna pressure wash the heck out of it, clean up the interior and everything. Get a battery, figure out what I want to do about fuel. I'd like to drain the tank, maybe connect it to an external tank for starters, but I'm not sure. We'll see. See what it looks like inside the car. So the inside of the car is filthy. Needs a new seat cover. I'll see if I can source replacement covers where I actually strip this off, put on new ones. Try that for both front seats, even though that one, the passenger side, might clean up. The rears are actually really nice, just need to be cleaned. Everything needs to be cleaned. I actually kind of like them when they're dirty like this because it gives me something to do. I can really focus on, after I get it running, then I can, really start detailing it up. Old school tape deck. So it's a 5-speed car. I said it's filthy everywhere. Had some mice living in here. Hopefully they didn't do too much damage. Factory boost gauge there. I hope that's not really how much gas is in it, because that's a lot of gas. There's no battery in it right now, so I don't know. Well, I'm surprised that those gauges are sitting like that, actually, like the oil pressure and everything, but see what happens when I throw a battery in it. Pretty exciting car to bring back. This thing will be beautiful when I'm done with it. And just real quick, the guy who I bought this from, Mike, if you're watching this, thanks buddy for selling it. He really didn't want to sell this car. He needed to because he's been moving it from place to place, and he's in between houses right now. He sold his house and they're on the market for a new house, and it just wasn't the right time for him to have this car. But yeah, he was a wicked nice guy, and he had a really hard time. I mean, he actually almost backed out of the deal after we'd already made the deal. That's how bad he didn't want to do this. But he's a stand-up guy, and he held up his end. So thanks again. So I've just been looking things over a little bit. Opened the hatch. I never even did that before I bought it. I'm gonna vacuum everything out before I even wash it because it's just too much, and if I get that all soaked, it's just gonna be worse. But something I noticed that really kind of surprises me is the condition of the trunk on the inside. It's still got the factory sound deadening mat in here. I'm trying to be really careful not to destroy it, but I already had the other side up a little bit. I can see that the original spare tire is still in here. Kind of hard to see, but I've looked at it and it's there, but you can see just how brittle it is, and I definitely don't want to destroy this because it's kind of surprising it's there. Another thing is that, sorry, the hatch just, these pistons are a little weak, the hatch just fell down on me. Is that you can still see there's remnants of the glass from where they broke the back glass before. So let me close this up so it doesn't fall on anybody and kill them. Those pistons actually not that bad. They do work a little. So over here, I was looking, and the fuel line is actually cracked right here. So I'm probably gonna disconnect that right there. Maybe run a hose to it, put the battery in it, and see if I can get the electric fuel pump to pump some gas through it, see what it's like. And also that way I can crank the engine a little bit to see, you know, if it's okay. At least get an idea of if it's even gonna turn. And before I do that though, I was looking at some other stuff. And that's the air intake to the turbo. And I can see there's some, like, I don't know, maybe a little bit of mouse nest or something. So that's the other reason I want to get the vacuum out, is I want to vacuum that all out before I crank it over, because I don't want to just suck all that into the engine, because that would be bad. So let me vacuum some of this stuff up, start cleaning. Alright, so I vacuumed up a few things. I'm going to throw, I've got a way oversized battery that I'm going to throw in here and just see what it does. Probably didn't disconnect that fuel line, but, or maybe even see if there's a fuse for the fuel pump I can just pull. But I just saw my first possible bad sign. So this right here, this is a manual boost controller. So what it does is it bleeds off air that goes to the wastegate and prevents the wastegate from opening, bypassing what would be a solenoid probably somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where. So the reason that's a bad sign is it means somebody had cranked up the boost on this car. And if you crank up the boost and you don't put on support and modifications like bigger injectors or the right tune for it or whatever, bad things can happen. So let's find out if bad things happened or not. So the good news is, if that gas gauge works, there's no gas in this thing to worry about anyways. All the gauges went to where they should. Let's crank it over and see what it does. I'm not trying to start it, I just want to hear the engine actually turn. Starter's a little, make a little bit of grind in there. I actually tried to start. Let me go make sure there's no gas spraying out of that hose. You can see that battery does not fit there. I was a little surprised to hear it fire, or at least one little stutter. There's no gas coming out of that hose. I'm assuming it's actually whipped all the way through, but it might not be. Sorry, I keep getting you out of the camera there, but I don't know if the battery is low, because that would make the starter sound like that. The battery's just low. But it's not seized up. So that's a good start. I looked at the oil when I was at the guy's house, and it was really black. But I didn't see any signs of like metallic in it or anything like that. Trying to focus in on that. All right. So I'm really happy that there's potentially no gas in there at all. I noticed this when I was there. I don't know why that would have been loosened up, the dipstick tube, but it is. Somebody had already ripped out the AC on it. The compressor went bad, and they took out all the AC stuff, which is totally fine by me. Let's go give it another crank and see what it does. Could just be that the engine, the starter, might be a little sticky. So the starter definitely does not sound good, but the battery sounds kind of weak too. That's the battery I use to run the winch to pull this thing up. But the engine wasn't making any bang bang clunk clunk noises yet. So that's a good start. I think I'm gonna go gonna get some gas. I'm gonna fix that line and get a battery, get going. Well, I just washed the car and it looks a million times better. You know, obviously it's not perfect and it needs to be washed a few more times before I paint it. Or not, just sand it down and paint it. But so what I ended up doing is I went to Walmart and I bought a new battery, and I disconnected the fuel line and the fuel line from a fuel rail, and I connected it to a copper line and tried running it into a jug outside the car to try to pump some gas through. I'd put some gas in the tank, not a lot, but like maybe 2 gallons, just to see, you know, what would it look like. Would it be really bad, or is it gonna be fine? But the fuel pump's not working, so that's not a big deal. I tried hot wiring it at the relay. There's a relay underneath the hood there, and I found the wire that actually powers the fuel pump, and I was able to hot wire it, and I could hear the fuel pump make like a sort of a thud sound, but it wasn't actually like humming, and I wasn't getting any fuel out of the line. So maybe tomorrow I'll pull that out. And I also grabbed an oil change for it, but I haven't done that yet. But it's been a lot of running around today, trying to get this started, get going on it, picking it up and all that. And yeah, I also was thinking, I have the factory wheels and tires from my Stealth right there, and they're like white spinners, I guess we call them, or something. I can't remember what people call them, but I think if this is a 5-bolt car, I haven't even popped the covers yet to look, but if it's a 5-bolt, those will probably bolt right up, and I have tires on those that hold air, but they're not any good. And I was thinking I could swap them out and just put them on this until I put because I gotta put tires on these wheels, but I've also got to refinish the wheels, which is actually too bad because most of them are like really good. This one's not too bad at all, but this one's probably the worst. You know, it's really peeling. So that gives me a way to keep the car still on wheels and tires while I get these ones all cleaned up and put new tires on. I guess that was the only one wheel that had peeling. So that's gonna be it for this initial update of this car. Follow along and I will be painting it. Still not sure I'm gonna paint the entire car or not, but I probably will. And be getting it all up and running. I'm gonna start by getting it mechanically sound, and then start with the bodywork and painting it and replacing a lot of little bits and pieces. So if this car interests you, follow along.